Hello, Smart Money Tree podcast listeners. Welcome to this week's show. My name is Kirk Chisholm. I'll be your host, and today I'm joined with Doug Hagren. Hey, Doug.
Good morning. But a lot of stuff over the weekend going on with Ukraine and Russia and this and that. And I think we were cyber hacked this morning because both you and I had to reboot our computers because I don't know, maybe the moon aligned wrong with Mars, or as this viral thing's going around where people have videos of the sun and they're calling it aliens and UFOs. I don't know, but welcome to the world of crazy.
I don't know. I've been living in that world for a while, Doug. I don't know if that's
go get that tinfoil hat because as you also said, maybe it's just the AI sentient taking over. So
yeah, it could be, and they chose Doug's computer to do it. They said,
of course they did.
Forget all those nice computers. Let me take over Doug's computer because I will rule the world with that.
Remember, there's two. Yeah, exactly. And that's, what you just did? You just mimicked almost every conspiracy theory on X, right? It's like, oh, something's off. It's got to be a conspiracy. But in all truth, of course they tried to take over my computer, and it's because obviously I'm the brainchild of everything. And listen, if there's two running jokes that have continued in this podcast as we work together, it's A, tech and my computer, and B, heroin. We got to pick one of them for show, right?
Yeah, we're trying to stay off the heroin, right, Doug?
Yeah, well, that's a good word of advice to everybody is, stay
Don't
off
do
the
drugs,
snack.
kids.
And if you've got it, just don't get high off your own supply. So
all right. Well, I want to start with a few things here. So we started to do our AI series, and we're not going to spend all show talking about AI because actually other stuff is happening in the world. But this month I'm going down the rabbit hole with AI. I spent last weekend and 2 weekends ago really getting into the weeds with it, and it's crazy. It's crazy good. And so, there's a lot of things to think about, and I want to talk a little bit philosophically right now because I think it's important to understand. We kind of right now, most people look at AI. There's multiple versions of it. There's the main GPTs. There's ChatGPT. There's Claude or Cloud, depending on if you're French or not. I know I'm not pronouncing it right. Claude. There's Grok, and then there's Google Gemini. Those are kind of the big ones, and then there's DeepSeek over in China. Now, the reality is are those any good? Sort of. I think there's an interesting level of frustration that goes on when people use them because what tends to happen is people just open it up and they just type something in and they're like, why isn't this thing working? This is a crappy result. I'm like, well, you probably asked it a crappy question. So I would like to start by saying, think of any of the GPTs as a child, a rather smart child, but a child with no wisdom. So imagine you had like Doogie Howser, right? And Doogie Howser was very smart as a young kid on the TV show. Obviously, it wasn't in real life. And that's great, but he didn't have any life wisdom, right? And life wisdom actually counts for a lot. Life wisdom is knowing what not to do, not necessarily knowing what to do. And that's built on experience. So the older you get, the more experience you have and the wiser you can be. So when you think about actually what was that movie with Matt Damon where he's really smart? What was that movie, Doug?
Oh, Good Will Hunting.
Good Will Hunting, yeah. Okay. So like Good Will Hunting.
In your neck of the woods, Kirk. You should never forget that.
I know. It drew a blank. It's Monday, Doug. So Good Will Hunting, Robin Williams talks about like, I'll bet you could, recite a sonnet, but you've never seen like the Sistine Chapel, like things like that. So if you think of AI is that Doogie Howser. AI is that really smart kid with no wisdom. And if you don't put things into context for it, it will not operate well for you. So effectively, you need to be a good prompter. You have to find good prompts. And if you really want to do it right, you have to kind of build a sequence of prompts in order to get it to do the kind of work you want. So it's really not there where you could just say, show me a house, because it doesn't know what kind of house you want. Do you want a ranch? Do you want a beach house? Do you want, a crazy house on the side of a mountain? It doesn't know, right? It can't read your mind. And so one of the things to keep in mind with AI is we all grew up in the industrial era. The world was created for the industrial era. It is not created for AI. So AI is a different way of thinking. How do you think about it? I don't know. We're all figuring this out. But some of it is prompting, right? It is not going to do your dishes for you. Sorry to say, kids. Not yet. Maybe the robots will, but AI is not. So
that's the Tesla bot. That's right.
I know. Yeah. We'll get there. But effectively, you have to think about it for it's a tool, and a tool is only as good as its user. So if you're not doing a good job with the tool, you're not going to get a good result. So, like I said, let's say I say, all right, I want to know about cats. Well, it'll probably give me a quick summary. Well, like, I didn't want to know that. Well, what did you want to know? You didn't tell it anything. So if you do a Google search and you just put in cats, you're going to get a lot of different results. The problem is Google doesn't know either. It's just using its most commonly searched results, and that's how it determines what to present you. Say, well, if someone puts in cats, mostly they want this, so it puts that page up at the top. So what you need to do with the GPTs is you need to set up a good prompt. The better the prompt, the better result. And it may take you a few tries. So it might say, like, let's just say I got, I don't know, let's just say I've got a sniffle, and it say, ChatGPT, I've got a sniffle. What do I have? And it gives you a summary of sniffles, right? I'm not going to do it here in the show, but basically, if you said something like that, it might say, well, you could have these things. Well, none of those things sound correct. Okay, well, I was just outside climbing a tree and there's pollen everywhere. Oh, okay, you might have allergies. Like, you have to prompt it. You have to give it context. You have to give it background. You have to give it, certain expanded understanding of you in order to get a better result. Now, I would say 90% plus the people are not doing it right. And I would say even the people who are giving it prompts are giving it what I would call vanity prompts. Like they'll listen to somebody on YouTube, like, oh, just tell it this, and you tell it you're like a rock star, CEO. Give me an answer for what I should do with my company. It's not going to help you. Okay, that is a good part of the prompt. Give it a identity. That's actually a really important part of the prompt, so it knows part of the context, but it still doesn't know what you want. So this takes some time to learn. It's worth it once you do, but it don't just look on YouTube and just say, oh, what's the most reasonable prompt I found. It's like an in-depth thing, because it has to learn about you. And things like memories or artifacts or things like that are really important when it comes to how it understands you. Or gems, I think a Gemini is what they call it. So that's a big part of this. Now, right now there is most use cases are nice to haves and not needs to have, right? Like, oh, it'll I'm trying to think of a good one. Oh, it'll write me an email. It will, it'll write me a business plan. It will do these simple tasks. So yes, some of these right now, some of them are very simple tasks, and they, if you set it up, it could make your life a little easier. But there's nothing really game changing right now for most people. Now, there are people out there who are doing game changing things, but it's not exactly going to do a lot of stuff that's going to save you massive amounts of time quite yet. But it will save you time for certain things. Like if you said, oh, I need a new employee, set me up a job posting. Okay, it could do that. But it's going to require some work to set up. So anyway, if you're starting to use it, play around with it. I've heard some people start companies with it. There's other AIs out there that do coding. There's some that create images or videos. There's some that create songs. I mean, any creative activity in your mind right now probably has an AI associated with it. I saw one creating a plan or a report, crazy stuff. Like it's really good, and it's in human language. It's not like coding language. So all that stuff's really cool. I haven't played with it all, but I'm going to over the next month, and I could tell you from what I've seen superficially, it's really cool. Now, here's the thing: the AI disruption is going to be huge, huge. It's gonna be really big. Just
Come
like,
on, Boston. Huge. Say it
huge.
right.
No, it's Trump's from New York, not from Boston.
Oh,
It's gonna be
sorry. That's right. That's
huge,
right. That's
huge,
right. That
enormous.
is New York. Right.
Anyway,
There's no R. There was no R to mess with there.
Yeah, no, there isn't. So, but it's going to change the landscape entirely. And here's the good thing: it's going to make our lives easier in many ways. And the bad thing is, it's going to destroy jobs. As it progresses. I think a lot of people think it's going to happen immediately. I don't. I think it's going to happen slowly. The adoption is going to happen slowly. The technology may happen quickly, but the adoption will be slow, because until it's useful for something that is that's really useful, unless you're using it for something useful, it's going to be really hard. So um, here's the thing: there is going to be a crisis of identity. Now, here's what I mean. What is the use of you if AI is going to do all your work for you? You might say, oh, it'll be great. And I can go sit at home on a chair and, go by the pool while AI is doing all my work for me. Yeah, but then why do we need you? So there is a level of understanding with these AI agents or AI platforms that if they start to do your jobs for you, and they will, if your job is monotonous, then your job will not exist anymore. So you need to have value, be able to create value, and learn new skill sets. Now, the first jobs that are going to be replaced are with people who know how to use AI. So the best skill you can learn right now is how to use AI. Because if you don't, someone with AI will take your job. That's the first evolution. So the best skill you can learn, this is, I know that it's personal finance investing, but this is life things. Learn how to, you don't have to learn how to code. Learn how to use AI just at a basic level, because you will speed up everything you're doing compared to everyone else, and you will be seen as irreplaceable. Now, eventually AI will take your job, but if you can stay ahead of the curve, it's knowing how to use it. So that's one thing. Here's another thing to think about. If AI, let's say AI, let's say you're using AI, right? And you say, all right, AI, help me solve this problem, this argument I'm having with my wife. And you explain the whole situation, and AI is like, well, clearly you're being an idiot. They wouldn't say that, but let's say clearly you're in the wrong. What are you going to say? Oh, thanks, AI. Let me go apologize because I was wrong. Is that going to happen? Or are you going to say, what's wrong with AI? AI is broken. This thing doesn't work. This thing stinks. Let's get rid of this. Which one is more likely to happen? Now, AI is right now, it's very easy to like, right? It's very polite. It makes you like it very easily. But if it starts to actually say the truth, you're not going to want to hear it, because human beings don't like to hear the truth. We have egos, and we don't want to be seen as wrong because we have an ego. Our ego protects our internal mental mechanisms and our confidence. So if AI is like, no, clearly you're wrong, you're gonna be like, no, this isn't working. You're not, and you're like, I didn't say it right. Let me explain it again. So you're not going to accept the answer. right? So what's going to happen? Is AI going to be the best resource where it tells you you're wrong, or is it going to change so that it basically boosts your ego, which is what we all do, right? The people on the left watch MSNBC and CNN. The people on the right watch Fox because they're looking for their own echo chamber. It's to protect their ego. They don't want something that contradicts their point of view. They want something that mirrors it because it makes you feel better. And that's why the media goes down the rabbit hole. And that's why they mirror their audience and they give them their own echo chamber. And if you don't believe it, go watch the other one and see how hard it is. It's really hard. So if you're a Democrat and you can't watch Fox and you don't think CNN or MSNBC are echo chambers, go watch Fox. If you're getting triggered, it means that what I'm saying is correct. If you can watch both without being triggered, okay, then maybe you're good. But that's not the case. So understand that there's a level of ego that comes into this, and if AI is countering your ego, then you're not going to accept it. So if you're not going to accept it, what good is this tool? So keep that in mind. There's going to be we were talking about a crisis of identity. Who are you? You know, Doug and I are financial advisors. I'm not going to speak for Doug. I mean, Doug might identify as a cat, but you know, I identify as a financial advisor. I identify as a man, as a husband, as a as a father. You know, I grew up I'm a Gen Xer, so you know, Gen X was all about being tough. So I identify as being tough, like mentally and physically. Like there's a lot of things I identify with because of my upbringing, right? I identify as thrifty. You know, you have these multiple layers of identity. But if AI takes all that from you, then what's your purpose? Who are you, right? Who do you need to be? So there will be a crisis of identity because we human beings need a purpose. We need work. We can't just sit in our butt all day. You know, there's no purpose there. My purpose, I need to go to work and provide for my family, right? My identity is as a provider, as a husband. Like that's the 70s and 80s view of the world. I know the millennials and the Xers, the Gen Z may view the world differently, but I view my role as a man, as a provider for my family. It doesn't mean my wife can't, but it means that that's how I see myself. So we will have a crisis of identity because AI will start to take away all the things that give us meaning. And it doesn't mean we won't have meaning, but it changes the landscapes and we have to rediscover who we are. So that's a huge crisis coming. Did you miss your opportunity to get PPP money during COVID? Are you waiting for our president to forgive your student loans? Are you excited about helicopter money? Me too. If you want free money, look no further. I'm giving away free money this week on our show. All I ask is 5 or 10 minutes of your time. I'm so excited to give you free money, I can hardly contain myself. Take advantage of me and my excitement to get your free money. Go to www.moneytreepodcast.com/free money. Follow the instructions today and get your free money. I think that's good enough for this week. Let's get into the housing, Doug. So any comments you want to make before we get into housing?
It's been a wonderful day. Oh, sorry, there's more. Wait, how's it go? And wait, there's more.
And wait, there's more. So go ahead, Doug. Anything you want to comment on?
Yeah, well, one little thing. You mentioned something a while ago. A millennia ago when you started this diatribe. No, a perfect example of kind of the way people have used it or the flaws that are still built into it. And of course, it's always interesting because if you're on X, then of course Elon says Grok is the greatest, and then you see stuff about how Gemini is just crushing ChatGPT and and all of this stuff. But a perfect example, Kirk, there was a video that was put out. And it was put out by someone who tends to throw out, they've got a lot of flat earth followers. Let's just put it this way. So they throw out a bunch of stuff.
Which Doug watches.
Of course. It's in my feed because, I'm convinced I have my pilot license. I have never once had to lower my altitude to stay with the curve of the earth. So I know it's flat, Kirk. One of the great arguments there that I just smashed my head into a wall. But anyway, there is a video going around of a basically an orange ball in the sky. And of course, the clickbait on it is, hey, people are wondering, and concerned over this big unidentified orange sphere. Of course, it's the sun, through haze, right? And of course, meteorologists like, duh. And of course, they pose the question like, people are confused. Now, some say it's the sun. Well, of course, nowadays in X, you can click on one of the AI things and have it explain it. And the explanation that came back from AI was, well, it seems plausible that this is Mars. It's this big in the sky. It's bright orange. And AI determined that it must be Mars. And then, of course, people started arguing with it. Now, try again. Mars is only, you're right. Mars would only show up as a dot. But, but still plausibly, and then I can't remember what it was, but it still didn't say it was the sun.
Was that Grok, Doug?
Huh?
Was that Grok?
Yeah, well, it's tied to X, and I'm trying not to throw out any brands under the bus here, but yeah, of course, it's just, it just made me think of it. There's a long way to go, and you need to really recognize, and I think it goes back to it, because I use it for a lot of things now, and it is incredibly powerful. I am coming up. We're going to be heading on vacation here shortly we're going to Alaska. And I have used it as a tremendous resource for what to pack, what to do, what's the personality of my family. Here's what my kids are like. And it has been amazingly helpful to dial things in. I was able to actually upgrade because I was able to use it to identify kind of what the right bid for upgrading was going to be. Nailed it. Here's the thing. You're absolutely correct. You can put in prompts. I think I said this last week. You can actually input, articulation and ideas from people and build around it. But you can't just blindly ask it. You have got to, it'll analyze things. It'll build correlations. It'll do a lot of things. It'll build business plans, but it's got a lot of work, but eventually all of this data is going to make it a sentient being. So moving on. Yes, it has been interesting. I can go all over the place here, but I'll start with one that I thought was really interesting that you both of us had found. The U.S. housing market hits nearly 500,000 more sellers than buyers. This is the most on record that has ever happened. There is, and I'm going to jump around a little bit, so I don't know if you'll be able to keep up on this with some with
do what
some
I can,
images.
Doug.
What?
I'll do what I can.
Okay, but there's a map now that's showing states where home values are dropping. My state just crossed into this, and so did yours, Kirk. That now there is it's not a major decline on sale prices, but we are starting to see that the pricing is and I quick math on this. I'm going to say that it's probably over 30 of the 50 states based on just a quick assessment here. Now I'm in Minnesota. You're in Massachusetts. Massachusetts was rising until recently, but you can see now that the majority of the country is starting to see that home values have dropped over the last year. This is the new data that is coming out. Why would that be? Well, there is a number of things. I've got an image here. 2.3 million borrowers have just dropped into subprime category. That's credit scores under 600. 2.2 million lost 100 points in 3 months. 1 million lost 150 points. Some got hit for missing just $440 they didn't know was due. By the way, word of advice, if you use credit cards, put your credit cards on auto pay. It is one of the worst ways to get your credit beat up is by missing the annual fee that hits your card you didn't know about, right? So just have it auto pay. At least you can come back later and deal with the rest of the balance. 2.4 million would have qualified for cars, mortgages, and credit cards before they hit. 63 billion in consumer spending may vanish from the economy, and this is all correlated into the student loan debt. And we went from 2018. There's a chart that shows student loan balances became 90 days late as a share of balances that were current or less than 90 days past due. It was basically holding steady from about 2018 to 2020. And then, no surprise, we talked about it then, This was right around 8 to 10% of student loans debt falling into delinquency. COVID came. And one of the things that happened during COVID, I could tell you this, I have a client who owns a credit collections company and a legal software company behind credit collections, had his best years ever because people used this time to pay down a lot of debt. And we sat from 2021 till the end of 2024, basically at student loan debt into delinquency right around 1%. Now, there's other reasons for that. We know that there was a lot of pauses that were put into debt payments. Look what happened in 2025. Okay, we have just seen a skyrocketing of people that are going into delinquencies in this area. Collections on federal student loans resumed at the beginning of May. Since then, the Treasury and Education Departments collected almost $100 million. Many defaulted borrowers were placed into loan consolidation and rehabilitation, and some tax returns were withheld. There are many, many people who rely on this, these tax returns that are now having, checks that are being garnished, things like that. Consumer loan stress, the percent of loan balances 90 days plus delinquent and getting worse. All categories, positive change. Mortgage delinquencies, Q1 2024 was 0.7. It went to 0.86. HELOCs went up. Auto loans went up. Credit cards went up. Student loans drastically went up. And every single thing. This is according to the Federal Bank of New York. I could keep going down the data here with what's going on and the reasons and correlations. But and mortgage, average rent price over time. Okay. Rent has decreased. Okay. So that's gone down. But what's happening here is consumer stress. Absolutely gotten to a point in which, they are feeling the pinch. There's actually new data that's coming out that that's being reported that there is 160 companies that are planning layoffs of employees through June. That exceeds approximately 130 companies that did so in May. What's the fact? Last thing I'll say, biggest gap ever between home prices and mortgage rates. Prices are 90% above the 130-year average. Mortgage rates are right around the long-term average. That gap's reporting, makes things clear that home prices are too high. They need to come down. Guess what? Mathematically, and there's a lot of pundits, especially in the Realtor Association, especially long-time real estate bulls, that will continue to tell you that real estate only goes up, that no matter what happens, that real estate prices, supply and demand, but we need new housing. Maybe true, definitely certain areas. But what are we facing right now, Kirk? We're facing a situation in which, people are feeling pressure, cash flows down and pressed. And what it comes down to, and this is something, and I've said this ad nauseum, mortgage price, housing is tied to cash flow. Mortgage lending is still the number one way that people buy houses. The majority of cash purchases on real estate are happening with the baby boomers and institutions. Those are the minority, and baby boomers selling their own house to buy another house is not sustainable on housing. Okay? You've got to have new buyers coming in. Where are those new buyers getting the money to buy housing? It comes from the banks. Now, we have other data that we have talked about and shown. There's actually another chart that showed that we are starting to see unrealized capital losses once again spiking for banks. What does that mean? It means that they invested in low-yielding treasuries, and as all the yields went up, guess what? They're sitting on a lot of assets nobody wants, and they would have to liquidate those at exceptional losses if they have to get quick liquidity. The last time we went through this, that really spiked was the Silicon Valley Bank, and the Fed stepped up with what was called the bank term lending program. That has ended. It ended about a year ago. Now, could the governments reinitiate it? Sure. All it did was basically create liquidity for banks when they got that run on with Silicon Valley and other banks that said, look, okay, we don't have money. You come and demand money out of our banks. We're going to have to sell our assets, and we're going to basically become insolvent. So the federal government said, sure, we'll lend to you to give you that liquidity. But the problem didn't go away. The can got kicked down the road. These banks are still sitting on these assets. They can't get rid of them. Okay. So what's happening here? what's happening here? In summary, if the majority of people trying to acquire real estate are going to have to get mortgages, that's a fact. And if mortgages are mathematically calculated on the 30-year scale, you can get a 15 if you want, but it's mathematically amortized on 30-year scale. So you know exactly what based on the interest rate, you know exactly what the payment's going to be. You can do this math yourself. And if that payment, again, is only going to be approved based on ratio of that payment to your overall outstanding debt to credit ratio, right? So again, why did I mention all the student loans? And you're like, well, this has nothing to do with housing. Absolutely does. If people are sitting on gobs of consumer credit debt, if they're sitting on gobs of student loan debt, and they're trying to get a loan, banks are going to start by looking at their income and assuming no other debt, they're only going to approve a certain ratio of what that loan payment will be to their income. If they already have other debt, that gets squeezed further. Now, on top of that, we're seeing job losses. Guess what that's going to do? That's going to exacerbate potentially the number of people that are going to have to sell if they're already stretched. Okay, so now you have a spike of sellers. We talked about this 2-3 years ago. Again, I didn't know when this was going to occur, but the reality of it is that it is occurring. And now on top of that, okay, remember this, banks don't care about a house you're going to acquire. It would seem very easy, and we love to spin it, and the mortgage industry loves to spin it this way. It's a home loan. It's not a home loan. I have said this repeatedly. It's an income loan. It is a personal loan. No different than going and saying, I want to get a loan from the bank. I need $20,000. And a company like Prosper says, sure, we'll lend it to you. The difference is they're securing it with your real estate. That's all they're doing. It's basically a protection. If you can't pay that monthly payment, they can come and they can take your home eventually and sell the home and try to recoup some of their losses. But it still comes down to an income loan. It is a loan against income secured by your property. If you lose your job, you can't get a mortgage. If you are retired, you can't get a mortgage. Okay. One of the things that is often recommended, and I know this is contrarian to belief, is it might be a great idea, your own financial planning independently looked at, but it actually might be a great idea to go out and get the most mortgage you possibly can right before retirement. As people say. Why would I ever do that? Liquidity. Because right now, if your home price, your home value is your equity, and there's a lot of debate. Should I use equity and net worth? Sure. But you should also really be looking at liquid net worth, because home equity isn't liquid. I'm going to let you talk because I know you want to, but I'm going to say one last thing on this is that remember this with home equity. You only get liquidity based on two things, and they both require permission. One, can I get a loan? Number two, can I sell it? And if you sell it, you have to get the permission of a buyer, which ultimately, and I'm plumbing full circle, requires the permission of a bank, right? So at the end of the day, home equity is all tied to the permission of a bank in almost 99% of cases. Kirk, I'll turn it back to you because I do throw a lot out there. Your turn for thoughts.
Yeah, no, I think it's an important perspective to have when it comes to cash flow, and certainly things are going to be changing over the next, I would say, few years. Here's a crazy idea. Let me just throw this crazy idea out there. Now,
AI is going to take your home.
It could, but that's the Terminator scenario. Here's a crazy idea. So we've talked a lot in the show about house prices. Now, normally in a free market economy where everything operates as it should, higher interest rates lead to lower house prices. Higher house prices come from lower interest rates. So there's an inverse relationship between the two. And that's how it should operate. Now, that hasn't happened in the last few years. And you could, Frankenstein's economy here, there's so much that's going on. We don't have a free market anymore. It's being manipulated by the government, by the Fed, by all the institutions. I'm not sitting here with my tinfoil hat, although I have it right over there.
It's come out. It's been fact.
It's reality.
The
right?
data. The Fed has said this. The actual Federal
Yeah.
Reserve has put this out.
It's a fact that the economy is being manipulated. No one is disputing that. It's been like that for a long time. But here's the thing: we think. Now, I've interviewed a lot of real estate people, and they've said, "Well, it's because of the supply and demand dynamics." Okay,
Would
well,
agree.
maybe that's true. I don't know. No one has enough data to prove it one way or the other. So I'll say, okay, maybe that's true. But here's the thing: if that's true, then and I'm willing to admit that I'm wrong. If that's true, here's what will prove that: if we lower interest rates, right? Let's say we lower interest rates by a lot. So mortgage rates go down to 3% again. And all the people who, you know, couldn't buy or whatever reason couldn't sell, because a lot of people around here didn't sell because they're like, I don't want to move to another house. I have to pay the same amount. What lower interest rates will do is it will open up all of that those homes that aren't selling because people can't sell them. So now you've got a bunch of supply in the market, and that should crash the prices of real estate. I know this is a total contradiction to everything you think and believe and the way things work. But if you want to prove whether supply and demand is actually the reason why house prices are going up, interest rates going down will do that, because they'll free up all that supply that they think doesn't exist. Of course, it exists at the right price. So it'll free up all of that supply to come on the market. And then if house prices crash, then you are correct. If house prices don't crash, then it's not a supply and demand issue. It's something else that we can't figure out. And just to be fair, in a free market economy or a pseudo free market economy, you never know why. We don't know why the stock market is going up and down. The news will tell you why, but it doesn't mean they're right. We don't know. Gold drops like, a few hundred points. Why did it happen? No one knows. It's because there were more sellers than buyers that day. There's so many reasons why things happen, and you can't pinpoint them. There's millions and millions of people in the market, and you have to know every single one of them what they were thinking in order to know that, and you don't. So that was kind of my aha moment I had this weekend. I was like, that's actually interesting and crazy, but it's certainly possible. So, we went over a lot of house prices. Doug talked a lot about the good charts, so I don't really have much to share at the moment. But I will share this because I do like some humor in the show. And those of you audio viewers, it is a picture of a glass half full. It's a picture of a glass half empty, and it's a picture of a glass that could go either way depending on when you last checked the news. Now, what's the takeaway from this funny bit? Basically, your opinions are persuaded by watching the news, even though the facts on the ground don't change. So hopefully you get some enjoyment out of that humor. Anyway, so I had another humor one, but I think it'll probably I won't share it. Okay, so here's an interesting thing that I saw, which is Google searches on certain terms, and the headline is basically Americans are seeking more help with adulting. Now, actually, AI will do a good job at this because it will give you answers. But some of the search volumes are how to do the laundry, how to use a mop, how to use a washing machine, how to use a credit card, how to file taxes, how to set up a bank account, how to put up a picture, how to use a hammer. I don't know who's searching these. How to change oil.
Now imagine
Apparently,
what AI is being asked.
this is what Google search volume, not AI.
Yeah.
So effectively, what this is saying is recently, and this is all relative, by the way. These are terms that people are searching. I mean, come on, how to use a hammer, how to use a mop, how to put up a picture. I don't know. Really, are the younger generation really that lacking of basic adulting skills? I'm sorry, I don't see it. I'm Gen X. It's like we were left home, and they were like, "Don't put silverware in the outlet." That was our instructions when we were left home alone.
We
Is
did it
please do
anyway.
not put a fork. That
We did it
explains a lot,
anyway.
Doug.
Remember Double Mint, the aluminum foil
I never
wrappers?
did that, Doug. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
come on.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
GI Joe and their wisdom for the day at the end of the show taught me what not to do. There's a power line down.
GI
Don't touch it. So anyway, um,
You were
I thought
probably a fan of Cobra, admit it.
sometimes
Taking down the world.
some of them were pretty cool. All right. I also want to share this one last chart, and then I want to talk about one more thing, and we'll wrap it up. This is the fertility rate in Europe. Now, I want to point this out for one specific reason. Now, if you understand, if you see what's going on in the world, and there is this mass migration into the US, Europe over, I don't know, the last 15, 20 years it's been going on, but it's been really put to a head by Trump, and Trump's been very against it. I know the Republicans have been very against it, but at the same time, the Republican president from early in the aughts, W. Bush had he said he was against it, but he fired a bunch of border security, and certainly morale in border security was very low. It didn't start with Obama. Bush just perpetuated it. I don't know when it started, but it got worse and worse and worse. So nobody's really done anything about it except for Trump in his first term and his second term has tried to do something about it. But we talk about why it's a bad thing. It destroys culture, our culture, the U.S., right? And the U.S. is a melting pot. I know this is a sticky subject, but the U.S. is a melting pot, right? And people say, "Well, I know, but you weren't a native here either. You were from somewhere else." Yeah, we're all from somewhere else, and that's fine. And I don't object to immigration. I don't care where they're from. I think immigration's fine. However, it can't be done without boundaries. There's a reason that we have an immigration policy and we have procedures to give people citizenship. There's a reason we do that. It's because we want to know who's coming in. And we want people who are coming in to be committed, right? If you have to take a test and you have to jump about a bunch of hurdles and you have to do a bunch of stuff, you want to make sure these people are committed, right? You don't want somebody to just say, I'd like to get a passport in the US, or I'd like to get this. Like, every country wants citizens that are committed to that country, right? There are very few countries that are not diverse, right? Actually, a bunch of the Asian countries are not very diverse. Japan specifically and China are very kind of pro their own race, which is fine, but it's just something to acknowledge. We are probably one of the most diverse countries on the planet. So it's not a bad thing that immigrants come in. It's a bad thing that they're flaunting the rules, and that we're not basically enforcing the rules. And our immigration policy stinks. Like, it should not cost you tens of thousands of dollars and years if you want to come here legally and you want to go through the system. Like, there should be a better system. It's all broken. So just
we don't have an
acknowledging
Ellis
that.
Island anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah, the system's all broken. So if you look at Europe has basically morphed over the last 20 years into the EU, and it's changed quite a bit. This is part of the reason why you're probably wondering, why is the UK and why is France and why are all these countries and Spain and Germany and all these countries allowing these immigrants from the Middle East in? They're coming in droves, and they're quote unquote destroying culture. I don't say destroying culture, but they're bringing their culture with them, and they're not integrating into the existing culture. That's what I mean by destroying culture. They're not integrating. And yes, that happened in the U.S. Hundreds of years ago, where different, like the Irish and the Italians, they all kept within their own. I get that, but you have to understand that there's a reason why, that despite the populace's objection to this going on, why the politicians are allowing it. It's because people have this economic theory, and there's some truth to it, that population growth, if you don't have population growth, you will not have economic growth, and that you need a bigger population. But if you think about that, if that goes on forever, then we're all standing next to each other because the population is so big. It's nonsense. But economics rules the day. right? So if you talk to any Harvard economist, you're going to say, well, we need to grow our population or we won't grow our GDP. Really? Is that the really the one thing we need to focus on is growing the GDP? What does GDP really mean? It doesn't really mean much. It's just an indication our economy is growing. What if it's growing per person? Well, maybe that's more important than growing the number of people. But that's not how we think. Think of AI. What do you think AI is going to do? It's going to displace all of these people. We're not going to need these people. Robots are going to displace all of these people. We're not going to need these people. What are we going to do with them? We're going to kick them out? We're going to exterminate them? I'm not suggesting that, by the way, but I know there's some people of note who are for depopulating the planet a little bit. I'm not in favor of that at all, by the way, but there are some people with power who think that, which is a little bit crazy. But you need to know that exists. It's not tinfoil hat stuff. They actually say that. So if you think about it, AI is going to cause a lot of disruption. It may cause some violence in many ways, whether it's top down or bottom up. But this trend of population and this bad economic theory of you need to grow your population to grow your economy. I don't believe that. If as long as you're being more efficient, you don't need more people. Technology has replaced the need for more people. That's what technology does, right? We don't have slaves in the fields picking cotton and picking tobacco and picking all these crops because we have heavy machinery. Heavy machinery caused slavery to go away because we didn't need them anymore because we just buy this piece of heavy machinery and it picks up all the crops.
And the Emancipation Proclamation.
Well, yeah, that was there too. But the point being is technology changes culture. It changes dynamics. What do you think AI is going to do? It's going to displace a ton of people. What are you going to do with them? I don't know. Maybe someday the people in power decide to get rid of all the eaters, right? Useless eaters, as the term has been thrown out around Silicon Valley. I'm not saying that I believe this. I'm saying that other people do, people who have more power than me. So you need to understand that these dynamics are horrible. So the fact that the fertility rate's going down, I think is fine. We don't need to produce 50 kids in order to perpetuate and survive like we did hundreds of years ago. Now, 2 kids is fine, right? Or in some cases 1, but whatever you want is fine. But anyway, I'm going to hand over to Doug. We got to wrap it up. We're running out of time. But I just wanted to point this out because this blew my mind that it was this low. And I don't know my geography because the names aren't on here. But this country right here, 1.11, that's bad. That's really not good. 1, let's see. I think those are the worst 2. Yeah, I think those are the worst 2. I mean, you got these other countries. I mean, yeah, 1.12, 1. Yeah, I mean, Italy. Wow, Italy's that low. Jesus. Anyway,
what's happened to the Catholics? Jeez.
I don't know, but this is not good. Anyway, Doug, when you wrap
Roman Catholics now have the least amount of children.
Seriously, what's going on?
The world is falling apart. Yeah. But they still feel guilty about it. So
they do.
Listen, you asked a really important question, Kirk. You said, what does GDP stand for? I believe it means got debt people.
That's a good one. I like that. So that's gonna be the title of our show. Got debt people.
Got debt. All right. Well, hey, for those of you listening and have been here before, you know this. And for those that are new, I'm Douglas Agrin. I'm the founder of Emergent College Advisors. Let's be honest. The more you make, the more college is going to cost you. Top tier schools, out of state tuition, multiple kids. You tend to have higher standards of letting your kids go to where, elite schools, 4-year educations tends to be a higher priority. Affluent families quietly burn through hundreds of thousands of after-tax dollars, after tax. And most don't even realize the collateral damage until it's too late. College planning is not separate from wealth planning. If you've done wealth planning and this has not been addressed, you need to understand your wealth planning is incomplete. And there is more data coming out from the Journal of Financial Planners, from major institutions, from all of the from many of the major media. They're putting more and more things about the impact of not having this as proper wealth planning. College is wealth planning, and done wrong, it can sabotage your retirement, kill your compounding. And wealthy people love to have their assets compound. which then can erase decades of smart decisions. At Mergent, what do? We help successful families protect what they built. That includes funding education without wrecking the plan underneath it and making sure that it's integrated into everything else you're doing with your wealth planning so that you can ensure that the dreams that you have sat down and talked about with your spouse and your children are built to come true. Find out more. Go to mergentcollegeadvisors.com. It's spelled MERGENT. Why? Because smart money doesn't guess, it plans.
Great. Well, thanks for coming on, Doug. And we're going to continue our AI theme this month. I got a lot to share. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I got a lot of frameworks to understand that I think will help you in this next evolution of technology. That's the show for this week. Thank you again for joining us on Money Tree Investing Podcast. My name's Kirk Chisholm, wealth manager of Innovative Advisor Group. We don't just manage your wealth, we make your life better. You can find more about me at innovativewealth.com. And of course, you can find me every week here on this show. You can also check out our show at Money Tree Investing Podcast. On our website, you'll have access to the show notes, resources, and the archive shows. Please remember to subscribe on our YouTube channel for immediate access to the new shows when they're released. When you subscribe to the show, it allows us to get access to some of the top minds of investing in personal finance. While you're here, please leave a comment and question if you want us to address it on the show. Have a great week ahead, and remember, no one will care about your money like you do, so invest in your life.